Thank you guys so much. Good morning, everyone. Well, been gone for a few weeks. It gets a little ugly. Any attempt again? Can we try that again? Good morning, everyone. Okay, all right, thank you. Wow, how fun. So here we are, Life Worth Living. We're in the last 3 weeks, and I'm going to finish it off. And I just wanted to, before we got too far away from it, thank some people. This team, Sam Hill has been putting this all together and helping us think this through and imagining and dreaming what this series could be. And then we had a team of 4 speakers, communicators for this series. And I just got to tell you, we've done, since I've been at Open Door in '85, we've done Ecclesiastes 3 times. And Ecclesiastes, I think, is one of the most important books in the Bible. And it's also one of the very hardest to teach. And this team, I am so unbelievably proud of them. Clint Levitt, are you kidding me? Just way beyond his years. And what in the world is Clint going to do with this man? And we're going to get to say, he was in our church once, you know. Don't forget that. Where is the young fella? We're going to say that someday. So thank you, Clint. And my son, Caleb Lynch. What in the world? Are you kidding me? Whose son is he really? I don't say anything without notes. And to hear him give wisdom and insight and clarity without notes, just because he's worked that hard on it, just so proud of him. And then Stu Black. Wow. College roommates with Spurgeon. And that cat, I'm just so proud. All these years, Stu just says, whenever, wherever, let me in. And he has information and stuff, historical things, knowledge. It's just so cool to have my brother in this series. So I'm going to try and kick it in. This is cake after this week. This week's not easy, but these next 2 weeks are just talk about the young and the old. So it's going to be a blast. I've thought a lot about how to set this up. This passage, the first couple 14 times I read it through, it made no sense to me, and I thought, I'm supposed to preach this? And about the 23rd time, it started to really make sense to me. Let me see if I can set it up this way. A long time ago, maybe 15 or 20 years ago, I knew a wise man, really wise man. And I did something stupid. I acted with passion in response to someone attacking me. They probably weren't even attacking me, but it seemed like they were. Your shame or whatever makes you think you're being attacked, and I went off in a really unhealthy way. Not my first time that I'd done that in my life. I just grew up with a dad who did that, and that's not my excuse, but I did it. Anyways, I really thought that this wise man had enough of me when I did that. And I groveled. I did all the things that I thought I was supposed to do when you really fail and you mess it up. Not repentance. These were things like just shame. Just shame, trying to do enough or say enough to be okay. And I just remember being in his presence and doing that in front of him. And he went, oh, no. No. Are you thinking that that's what you should be doing? He said, John, have you gone to God with this? Have you owned what you've done? And let his shed blood take care of it? I said, I think so. He said, then you're blameless. You're clean. completely. 100%. No more of that. Whatever that stuff was you just did. No more of that, ever. Please. And that single conversation I have gone back to 100, 200, 800 times to moor myself when I get there again, because I do get there again. So, here we are on wisdom and foolishness. It's interesting. Solomon, his stock and trade in Proverbs 15 years before was on delineating between the wise and the foolish. Here it's a little different because Solomon has failed at all these things he's going to talk about. And he doesn't really lay out wisdom versus foolishness too much until this chapter. And then he lays it out a lot. And I'm just going to ask you, if you don't mind, letting me read it through with you, because I'm going to ignore some of the verses. And I just thought we ought to at least read them. Dead flies make a perfumer's oil stink. This is chapter 10 of Ecclesiastes. If you don't have it, if you don't know where it is, just open your Bible to the middle. You'll hit it. Dead flies make a perfumer's oil stink, so a little foolishness is weightier than wisdom and honor. A wise man's heart directs him toward the right, but the foolish man's heart directs him towards the left. These are hard words to hear for a left-hander. Even when the fool walks along the road, his sense is lacking, and he demonstrates to everyone that he's a fool. Now, if the ruler's temper rises against you, don't abandon your position, because composure always allies great offense. There's an evil that I've seen under the sun, like an error that goes forth from the ruler, folly in many places, many exalted places, where rich men sit in humble places. I've seen slaves riding on horses and princes walking like slaves on the land. So, he who digs a pit may fall into it, and a serpent may bite him who breaks through a wall. He who quarries stones may be hurt by them, and he who splits logs may be endangered by them. If the axe is dull, and he doesn't sharpen its edge, then he has to exert a lot more strength. Wisdom has the advantage of giving success. If the serpent bites before, I have a feeling Solomon was bit by a snake at some point. If the serpent bites before being charmed, there is no profit for the charmer. Words from the mouth of a wise man are gracious, while the lips of a fool consume him. The beginning of his talking is folly, and the end of it is wicked madness. Yet the fool multiplies words. No man knows what's coming after him. No one could tell what's going to happen. The toil of the fool so wearies him that he doesn't even know how to go to a city. Woe to you, O land, whose king is a lad, whose princes feast in the morning, and blessed are you, O land, whose king of nobility and whose princes eat at the appropriate time. For indolence and rafters sag, and through slackness the house leaks. Men prepare a meal for enjoyment, and wine makes them merry, and they think money's the answer to everything. Furthermore, in your bedchamber, here would be a good idea. Don't curse a rich man, for the birds of heaven, they will carry that sound, and the winged creature will make that matter known. I, Solomon, have failed in all of those areas. Verse 1. Dead flies make a perfumer's oil stink, so a little foolishness is weightier than wisdom and honor. Wow. Right out of the gate, thank you. In the English, it doesn't completely carry the idea that in the Hebrew, there's a subtle difference that sometimes brings out the feeling more of it. So let's take a look at what it says in the literal Hebrew. No matter how much potpourri you own, just a little broccoli sitting out on the counter will later make your home smell terrible. All right, that's the original language. You see how it kind of plays up a little bit there. The idea is this. It doesn't take long to give permission to self-protect before you've done some pretty significant damage to you and those you love. Doesn't take much. It doesn't take much me going off track and self-protecting before it gets all out of whack. We really haven't talked systematically about the wise and the foolish. And I wish, as I was going through them this week, that I could read just chapter after chapter. That's almost all Proverbs is. But he says, my son, in chapter 3 of Proverbs, don't forget my teaching. Let your heart keep my commandments. For length of days and years of life and peace they will add to you. Don't let kindness and truth leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart, so you will find favor and good repute in the sight of God and man. And then he says what he forgot. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't lean on your own understanding. In the new covenant, we would say, you're a new creature. Christ is in you. Don't feel like you ever have to be separate from that reality, back into your old ways. But in all your ways, acknowledge him. Not, okay, he did this, but just never forget that this is Christ in you who's doing it. And he in the meanwhile, will be directing your paths. And remember, Ecclesiastes 2:24 through 26 said that wisdom, it is never earned, it is always a gift and it's received by those who trust him. Now, these are all general broad brush statements. No one fits fully in one or the other. No one is the fully wise and no one is the fully foolish. We're all on the spectrum, as my wife says. I can play both the fool and the wise. But you watch what he says. There is a life bent that is different for those who say, I'm going to stay under God. There is a life bent for them that causes them to innately live differently, almost involuntarily. I want to give this just a made-up working definition that helps me walk my way through wisdom and foolishness. Wisdom, a God-trusting life, able to clarify complex life issues with insight, spreading knowledge into practical discernment and moral protection, to reveal his very nature, almost innately in the moment of need. Wisdom is that which comes from a God-trusting life that's able to clarify for others and himself or herself complex life issues, and with insight able to spread knowledge into practical discernment and moral protection. And in doing so, that person reveals God's very nature almost innately in the greatest moment of need, like when a ruler is coming at you in anger. Now, foolishness, instead of a God-trusting life, this is a self-trusting life, bluffing understanding and obscuring clarity into ambiguity, hurting others to win, and unnecessarily creating failure and chaos in a blinded lack of humility. That's foolishness. I feel like I want to say to you, more than ever, read this word. Study this word. Guys, I don't know that I say this enough because early on I wanted to make sure that you didn't read it for wrong reasons, that we were under grace, not the law, so we didn't talk much about reading it. I think that was a mistake. Read this word. study this word, understand this word, because you have to know who he is, who you are trusting. It means nothing to just say, trust the Lord, happy unicorns. You have to know who this person is that you're trusting. And you have to read this word because in it, it tells you who you are. It reveals you to you. Guys, there's nothing like this. People, I hang out with a group of people. Some of them say, oh, no, don't make the word, don't worship the word. I look around here and I see nobody that I'm concerned of that with. Guys, this is God's revelation to us. Yes, he speaks to us. He speaks to our hearts. Holy Spirit speaks to us. But guys, this is it. When we say trust the Lord, this is what takes it from just being talk. Does that make sense, you guys? Okay, think about it. What do you experience when you are around a fool? What does it feel? Give me anybody. Raise your hand. Tell me, what does it feel like when you're around a fool? Thanks for raising your hand. It feels crazy making, doesn't it? What was that back here? Everything's more confusing. Yes. Bewildering. Yes. What are you getting at? Yes. Clarity. Yes.
Judge.
Oh. When you're around a fool, you feel judged. It is frustrating.
There's just this weird awkwardness, edgy awkwardness.
A weird, edgy awkwardness.
Dramatic. It's drama.
Oh, there's... Woo! It is high drama. I was mayor of that town. There's no trust. Larry.
You gotta rush. Everything's gotta be in a hurry.
Oh, gosh. It's crazy making. Everything's in a hurry. Everything's an emergency.
Control through confusion.
Ooh. There is a control through confusion. Yes.
Cloud of chaos follows their life.
Cloud of chaos follows their life, and you get into it, and you're just like, what has happened to me? Yeah, well said. Guys, yes.
I tend to want to not respond so that they can get things.
Yeah, I tend to not want to respond so they can just get done with their thing, which actually makes them talk more. Yes.
You said you were mayor of that town. We've all visited that town.
And it's been an honor to have you. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I have stood at the ribbon cutting ceremonies with you, and yes. Yes. Wow. Did you hear what he said? Unfortunately, in my case, sometimes it is camaraderie. Yes. Yes. It feels like after I've been with this person, where is God in all this? All right, gosh, guys, you ruined my list because I thought, well, I'll have a list that will help them. And now these feel cheap and tawdry. This is what we've said. You don't feel safe. You don't ask their counsel, though they're going to still give it. And one of the things we were saying in a number of ways, they're pretty self-unaware. They're not really open to your direction or correction. Oh, they gossip about others. And you're not certain that they're not gossiping about you. They demand that you take their side. They don't really trust God or anyone else with them. Yeah, those are the foolish. What do you experience when you're around a wise person? What do you experience? Comfort. Peace. When you're around a wise person. Eddie. confidence. They give you confidence. Yes.
I feel valued.
Wow, I feel valued. Kelly.
A desire to bring out the very best of myself. Like they're able to entice that out.
They're able to entice out the very best of me.
Bold assurance of who I am.
Yeah, it gives me a bold assurance of who I am.
They can rebuke you but uplift you at the same time.
Oh, the wise can rebuke you and lift you up at the same time. That is sorcery. I don't know how they do that. Yes.
Acceptance of who I am despite the foolishness in which I'm currently standing.
Wow. Acceptance of who I am despite the foolishness in which I'm standing. That sounds like my story from 15 or 20 years ago, and yours from perhaps more recently, from what I've seen there. Yes.
It's like what it says for.
Say that again?
It's like what it says for.
Yes. It's like God himself spoke. Yes. Honored. Yes.
I want to pay attention.
I want to pay attention. A bunch over here, I'm sorry. Yes.
A sense of equality as opposed to an ignorant person who tends to feel superior.
Wow. There's a sense of equality instead of feeling like an ignorant person with someone above you who's better than you. Yeah.
Safety and my vulnerability.
Oh, I feel safety in my vulnerability. Beautiful, beautiful. And again, now my answers that seemed so important just yesterday. You feel safe around them. They can tell, you can tell that they trust God with their person. They're teachable themselves. They're not past their learning. You listen and later reflect upon their words. You discover you trust them and come under their care. You feel like a better person when you're around them. Well, guys, I just want to tell you, I'm going to get to a crescendo, and so just bear with me because I'm going to look at the fool, I'm going to look at the wise, and then I'm going to look at one aspect of the wise that has rocked my world this week as I've been going through this passage. So bear with me. I'm trying to do honor to this passage at the same time, give clarity. Let's give the next slide. I just want to go through this real quickly. This passage tells us the fool's heart is bent toward the left, towards dishonor. The fool readily demonstrates to everyone that he's a fool, verse 3. He gets harmed by his own attempts to harm others, verses 8 through 11. He's trapped by his graceless, endless words, verses 12 through 14. He's so wearied by how hard he makes life that he usually just wanders around confused. Verse 15, he feels self-entitled, and he gossips, and eventually it all comes back to harm him. That's this passage that we just looked at. His bent is toward the left, towards dishonor. Really, in the Old Testament, it's not easy being a left-hander. The Middle East, everything is built towards the right hand being everything. In Psalm 16. Because he is at my right hand, I will not be shaken. Therefore my heart's glad, my glory rejoices. Psalm 16. You will make known to me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy. In your right hand there are pleasures forever. In your left hand, nothing. It's so, in the Middle East, you know that's true. You eat with your right hand. You do hygiene things with your left hand. That's why I'm from Ireland. We don't do that at all. Yes, the fool readily demonstrates to everyone he's a fool. Verse 3 says that pretty clear. He not just, verse 3, he walks on the road and his sense is lacking. He demonstrates to everyone that he's a fool. He gets harmed by his own attempts to harm others. If you look at verses 8 through 11, he who digs a pit may fall into it. He's saying, he who tries to dig a pit for someone else He may go in himself, and there's plenty of people who will pour the dirt onto him. A serpent may bite him who breaks through a wall. You try to break through a wall and disrupt things of someone else's life, and you finally get there. You have no idea what's on the other side of the wall. There may be a snake ready to bite you. He talks about quarrying stones. He says, he who quarries stones may get hurt by them. You think you're doing something to get your advantage at somebody else's expense, and you find out that that very thing that you get is going to hurt you. And then he talks about splitting logs. And I've done this. In splitting logs, I have to be careful that they not come back up and endanger me. And splitting up other people, you find out. So this is one of those places where if the literal sense makes sense, seek no other sense. But the literal sense, it's metaphorical. It's analogous. And so I look at this. He's teaching us that he gets harmed in his attempts to harm others. And Solomon's trying to warn us. He's trapped by his graceless, endless words. Verse 12 says, words from the mouth of the wise are gracious, while the lips of a fool, they consume him. It's one of those devices in Proverbs where each half is filled by the other half. So basically he's saying the wise are not consumed by their words because they're full of grace. And because the fool's words are without grace, they're consumed. Don't you see that in the fool? I've heard myself say this. I'll be in an argument with Stacy. Just let me give you, if I could just tell you once again better what I'm trying to say, you would see that I'm right. And she looks at me and goes, I married a fool. At least for that evening. He's so wearied by life that he wanders around lost. What a strange statement. The toil of the fool so wearies him that he doesn't even know how to go to a city. A present-day statement to that would be, he just doesn't even know to come in out of the rain. He feels self-entitled. That section in there in verses 17 through 19 talk about a great king who actually, in the Middle East, they took care of the needs of the people in the morning. They took care of the issues and the complaints and all those things in the morning. They feasted in the evening when this was taken care of. And he talks here about unhealthy kids of an unhealthy king who feel self-entitled. They're feasting all day long when they should be serving, when they should be caring for the people whose influence they've been given. And he gossips, as we saw with the bird, and it all comes back to harm him. Now, hit me with a slide on the wise. The wise are bent toward honor and trust of God and others, verse 2. The wise have, I love what it says in verse 10, it gives success. Wisdom, if you will just come under, trust it, and let it be yours, it gives your life just a general success. The wise naturally speak grace and speak with grace. And so their words, they don't have to use a ton of them, and it doesn't consume them. Their words, I loved what you said. You could rebuke me at the same time, make me feel like I'm being lifted up. The wise live out, in verse 17, the responsibility of their influence. I love that it says, blessed are you, O land, whose king is of nobility and whose princes eat at the appropriate time for strength and not for drunkenness. That verse 19, it has to be in the context, otherwise it just doesn't look right. Men prepare a meal for enjoyment, and wine makes merry, and money is the answer to everything. That doesn't sound good. But if you get in the context, it's like these people who have been indolent, they make a meal not to be nourished, but to all the time, I got to get some enjoyment. And wine, they think, if I could just get enough wine, it fills a void. And of course, money's got to be the answer to everything. That's Solomon's complaint about them. And the wise don't gossip about others. They speak to them. One of the greatest gifts, everybody gets revealed in community. One of the greatest gifts is when someone comes up to me and does not talk about me. Whew. What a protection of love that is for me. Now let me get to the one thing about this passage that just grabbed me and wouldn't let go. The wise innately, whatever word you could come up with, involuntarily, without even having to think about it, just having it naturally, the wise innately respond to attack, or whatever word that you want to use, somebody judging them, someone going at them, they have, it's used twice in the Old Testament, this word composure. Gosh, I love it. Let me give you this passion-filled, wild man who had not learned humility and had not learned trust. When things got weird or somebody came after me, this was a lot more fun when I used to do that with people until my phone went off one service, and then it just was not nearly as much fun. But when somebody came at me, I would either fight or flee. Right? And what Solomon says is, don't. I feel like I'm too weak. I can't fight. I'm just going to quit. I'm going to give up my commitment. I'm just going to get out. Poor Bill, how many of those scenes have you had to play out with me where I quit. That's it, I quit. The weather's a little hot today. I quit. It just didn't matter. And Solomon says, don't. If the ruler's temper rises against you, don't abandon your position, because composure allies great offenses. Wow. Think about it. Wisdom trusts God to protect you against wrong to your name. What if I did this? I want us to stop here. This is where I want to go. This is why I need to know the Word, so that I can remember who I am. When someone comes at me and I've been wrongly accused or even rightly accused, and someone's temper rises against me, to remember who John Lynch is. And then to own and repent if you know you've done wrong. Own it. To be able to say, he's right. That is about me. God, I need your shed blood right now to presently take care of the wrong that I've done. Will you do that? And God says, done. And then I choose God's redemption, to hear his voice say, now, John, I know what you've done. You have to dare believe that all the angels and I see you as blameless and clean. That my trust in the shed blood of Christ actually did that. And then I must trust that I'm not who I'm being accused of. I'm not that person. And I have to remember that God is in control of my very life and my reputation. Now, if I can dare risk that, what would the result be in me? If this is a kind of the way that John Lynch is starting to choose to live his life, say the next person who comes down the road and has an issue with me and goes after me in some way or any way, what would be my response innately now? Composure. Composure, that powerful, beautiful word. I love it. Again, twice in the Old Testament, literally when you see it in the Hebrew, the adjectives for it are healing, cure, health, remedy, soothing, tranquil. Webster says it's a calmness or repose, especially of the mind or the bearing. It's the settled objectivity of mind and peace of heart amidst adversity or sudden opposition. It's what Proverbs says in 14, a tranquil heart is life to the body, but unbridled passion, it's rottenness to the bones. I have learned this so late in my life. I'm still slow to the gate. I keep doing it, guys, but I'm different. My bent is different. This is the ability to keep objectivity so I don't have to make myself the issue. Solomon says that lies great offenses done against you. If I have composure, there's no wall to push against. The wrath of the person is soon bridled. Okay, it makes for a nice marquee for a church or any of those things, and we just go, yeah, I should be more composed. Next time I'm going to do that. I'm composed. No, I'm not. Composure is not an add-on. Do you understand what I just said? Composure is not an add-on. Composure is the result of believing what is true about you and resting in its abiding results. Composure is formed from a trust of God's person and accomplishment, which allows me a conviction of blamelessness, able to say no to shame as it arises, by trusting the cleansing power of the cross. Composure is formed from a trust of God's person and his accomplishment on the cross, which allows me a conviction of blamelessness, able to say no to shame as it arises by trusting the cleansing power of the cross. We are the people of the resurrection. And so we do have power to live this way. That's why you have to read this word. You have to know who he is, who you are trusting, and you have to know who, you have to be able to trust who he says you are, because it is this important. And so I trust the power of redemption to replace shame. It brings me to peace knowing that I'm blameless. And then when attack hits, I discover a shocking, innate response of objectivity and calm. I know. Some of us, I even watched as you were raising your hand, it breaks our hearts because we go, I'm not there yet. And all I want you to hear is you are right on time. You're beautifully on time. Every single one of us in this room, beautifully on time. God is not, Solomon doesn't even know yet what he's talking about. He doesn't know the power of the resurrection. And you guys were right on time. Even this old 64-year-old preacher, he's right on time. And that's why we come to this table. And so I'm going to ask even this table today if you could do something beyond what we normally do. When this comes around to you, the bread and then the cup, for you to make application to something you're going through. Something where you feel like yesterday, where I felt like, shoot, I'm not enough. Shoot. What's wrong with me? Shoot. And dare to believe that already Jesus Christ has poured out his blamelessness and cleanness upon you. and for you to dare to enter into it, do you know what it'll do? You will start walking through your day-to-day experience with less shame. This is a great starting point right here. To dare to believe that the shed blood of Jesus Christ is that powerful. Let's go to the table.